Well, hello again and welcome to the Third Eye Vibes podcast. Today I have an amazing guest, Debra Zachau, founder of Grow Your Light. She's also an author, teacher, advisor, and speaker, and a certified soul realignment practitioner. Now, how cosmic is that? She's also a professional colleague. She has worked many years on the hotlines, and she's an amazing teacher. She just released her own version of the tarot called the Clarity Tarot in collaboration with Kate Matthews. The art from Kate Matthews is wonderful on this deck. And so we get about an hour sit down with her, and it was a nice conversation. And you get to see some insights too from two people, some perspectives from two people who actually do this professionally, have been doing it for many years, and get a feel for kind of some of the struggles that we have doing it, and even her struggle in creating. And we talk about the creation process, things. I'm not going to give it all away. You have to stick around and wait. So without further ado, I want to introduce Debra Zachau. Well, there you are. Hello, Miss Debra. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Doesn't that make you feel young? When someone says Miss Debra, you know.
Miss Debra.
But I hope I've already built you up to be this larger than life figure, so you have big shoes to fill.
Oh my gosh. I do hope I can do that. Thank you so much.
Well, today, most definitely, I wanted to talk to you because you've been doing this for a very long time, and usually I go through a lot of different questions, and one of them is like, when did you start just in the tarot and really start formulating, where you would end up today?
Well, in a nutshell, I'll make it really quick, but I've loved the idea of being able to help people with spirituality or actually psychic science. So when I was originally in Seattle, and there was one metaphysical shop that opened, and I poured myself into it. I was a hairdresser by day, and I owned a salon in Seattle, but I would leave to take classes, and I took every class they offered, from palmistry to tarot to astrology, and I really loved my tarot teacher. So I started practicing that. But it's just like anybody who enjoys a tool like this, you need to practice, right? Well, I had a built-in clientele. Everybody who came into my shop sat in my chair. I could jibber jabber about this, and they'd get interested, have a question. I'd go home and try to answer it with the tarot. And then the next time they come in for their hair, I'd say, well, this is what it said, what happened. So that's how I practiced. And a few times I tried to do it along with my hairdressing, but I wasn't good enough to be pro, and I wasn't and I didn't have enough time in the day, basically. So there was some gaps in between. But boy, when I moved to California, I decided to really do my dream. And I was tired of just being 50-50 correct on my readings. I mean, I'll just be totally honest. My readings, when I did a reading, it felt like it was a coin toss. And that's when I just decided to read every book on tarot, learn everything, everybody else's perspective on cards, try all of them out, really create a language with tarot. And just before going, I still didn't have a platform to actually make money at this, but that's what my goal was. So what I did when I moved here, I didn't go back into hairdressing. What I did was I worked through hospice. So I would do in-home care, hairdressing, grooming, things like that for people who can't get out. And so I would travel that way, leaving plenty of time to try and build a clientele. So that's when I started on the hotlines, and when I wasn't in hospice. Yeah. And that's like baptism by fire, man. You just dive in, and you just trust you're doing fine, and that's the main thing. Trust that you're doing good work. And even if you don't feel like you're the best to go pro, there is that time you have to challenge yourself to go pro, and trust that you're doing good work, and that the people that come to you for advice or counseling are are ready for your message, however that comes out. You know what I mean? Trust the process. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. There's a lot of ups and downs, but after I decided to just serve well, I feel I serve well. That's when my life changed for the better in all aspects. I was doing, I was making money at what I love to do. I was following my fascination, and another fascination popped up, is that I was so thrilled to be able to be successful that I want to teach other people to do it too, if that's their thing. And then that's how I got into it.
It's kind of similar for me. I have a lifetime of study in esoteric things, and there was a shop around here when I was in my when I was in the 90s, in my early 20s, and I took a lot of classes there, like Hermetic philosophy, things like that. But I never had a desire to teach or to read people. For me, getting thrust into the hotlines was kind of, I had always been extremely intuitive. Like I could be in a room and someone walks by me and I get a pain in my lung, and I'll be like, why would I get a pain in my lung when you walk by? And they just got half a lung removed for lung cancer. And so I would have all these experiences, but I got put out in life, what I normally did. And so I was like, well, maybe I should try to put this to work. And I went straight from that green, being that green, to jumping into the hotlines. That's when you really test yourself, because for me, if you care about what you do, especially when someone's paying you to do it, you want to give them a good service. You want to give them a good experience. So you care more about it, once you realize you're taking money from people to do this. But I was thrust into it. It was an accident, basically. And
But
I was just really good at it, and it took off for me.
and don't you feel like, and this is what I want to say for the people who are thinking about going pro, that understand that you are doing good work, that the people in front of you asking for counseling are ready for your message. But there is a place we energetically go for the information that's like no other place in your day-to-day living. And I talked to a friend of mine who also works on the hotline just last night, and he was saying, I've had such a terrible day, but it's my day off, but people are calling me for counsel, and he saw that as a bad thing. Why do I have this bad day? It's my day off, and why are people calling me and I can't seem to serve them? And I said, look, that's spirit saying, go to your happy place. For 3 times, spirit came in, brought you a client so you could be at peace in the place we all need to go to acquire the information our clients need. Does that make sense? And so when you look at it for that perspective, it's like I feel like I don't even age, that I stop aging while I'm in that upper octave of information. So that's what feeds me. But I'm really proud of you for just going for it, and that's what it takes. And I
It was
support
scary
everybody.
at first,
Of
because I
course.
was green, but I've always been a natural communicator, and I've been using the gift my whole life. And
Mhm.
I'm what you call like if you were to compare what kind of a strange gift I have, I guess people in native cultures would say I was a bit of a heyoka. So I'm a bit salty sometimes in my personal life with how I manifest it, and heyokas are known for being kind of tricksters that mirror I don't do that in my personal work, because I
Right.
don't feel like people would tolerate me, because I take such an unusual path. But for me, I have this philosophy that a lot of what we do, and this, especially on hotlines, sometimes we have people who have an obsession with someone they can't let go of,
Mhm.
a tie they can't let go of, and a lot of times not healthy. And it's like the same thing over and over. But I
Mhm.
wait every day for that one client that's just met, and they just need someone to listen to them and set them right, and put all the pieces together for them so they can start getting their life in the toolkit to do it. And I always say that no matter how mundane my day is, I always wait on that one client. And when I get done with them, I always, because, one of the places we work, the messaging doesn't expire right away. I always spend the rest of the messages with them
Oh,
free
yeah.
because I know they're really shook up.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not just about, the money. This person really needs me. They're not having an obsessive moment. They're really at the edge of their whole experience, not really being
Mm-hmm.
able to cope. So I try to, make all of the stuff that's kind of dirty,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
people in
yeah.
situations and it's not our place to judge. It's our place just to work with people in the space they're at, which
Yeah.
took a little time, too, to get used
Sure.
to. But that one experience you can have a day where you really make a difference in someone's life. And that's how I've made sense of continuing to do it, and
Uh-huh.
because some days are really, you listen to everything in a person's life that they don't tell anyone else. They
Right.
tell you things they don't tell anyone. They don't tell their relatives. They don't tell their friends. They
Right.
come and tell us.
What
That's
an
pretty
honor.
heavy. Yeah, I mean, I've had people confess all kinds of things, and I won't say that. I don't like to talk a lot about what clients have told me because I feel like it is a sacred space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I could give the anecdotals, but then again, there could be who would say, "Oh, is he talking about my experience?" And then I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
in
Right.
their mind, I violated that privacy, which is to me is sacred. That privacy that you have with those people in those situations, and some of them are really dark.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it ended up being a good life for you. And what year was it? Would you say that you really started taking it serious?
Okay. It was, I just started the salon. So it had to be in the early 80s.
Oh wow!
So I owned a salon. I bought a salon. It was in the early 80s. And then the shop opened up. Seattle was very small at that time. And so the shop was a little distant, but it didn't take me long to drive there, park it. And so I was able. Now it's kind of different, but we have the internet as well. We can learn off the internet, um but I've always wanted to help others in a way. In other words, when you meet someone who is having trouble, if you are able to understand where they are at the moment, all it takes is a couple of words, maybe one full sentence, to be able to mirror back what you think they're feeling. And if that sentence is right on, then you've already assured that person that they are not alone in their struggle. And that's what I want to teach others. And even if you've already worked on the hotlines and you just need that little insight, to be able to do well for a person right away. That's uh that's my objective. But I don't know where I was going with that. Oh no, I lost my train of thought.
But we definitely got to get into this. That you have now come to this place in your walk that you've created your own deck, and you've done that with a collaboration called the
Oh yeah.
Clarity Tarot. And I know you want to talk about this, and I've been a little bit to it on my social media.
Awesome. Yes, yes. I wanted to talk to everybody mostly about the creative part of that. Yes, I want to tell everyone, shout from the rooftops, that my deck is the Clarity Tarot, available on Amazon and blah, blah, blah. But mostly, the people who are interested in my work are interested in doing their own work, creating their own deck, creating their own angle, understanding, because we are all a collection of our experiences, and they want to write a book or something like that. And I discovered something through creating the tarot, the Clarity deck. And that is, how, Matt, how when, especially spiritual people, we really want to be able to divine the higher octaves. And to do that, we need to remain balanced, our chakras balanced, our routine's good. You get up in the morning and make your bed, you brush your teeth, you take a walk, they've got your, so you can eat good fruit, so you're all balanced, so you're able to do good work through the day, in the name of spirit. But I got to tell you, if you're in a creative bent, if you want to write a book or create a deck or some other tool for divination or anything else, write a novel, a fiction novel, I don't care what it is, I discovered you can't be balanced through it. You, I,
No, you can't.
you can't. So
You
there
just
were,
it's so many ups and downs. Like I was that way with my first CD music. I didn't know anything about what an MP3 was. I was completely computer illiterate, but I just knew I wanted to do it. And
uh
I didn't know how. And it was so nerve-wracking because I knew nothing, and I had to learn it all. So
but
I
what,
know, and then you go through the ups and downs.
but you're calling it ups and downs, and I'm calling it ups and ups. See, this is the click. I did my best. I wrote 3,000 perfect words one day, and I thought, what is the magic? Am I just in the flow? Are the angels close? What am I channeling? No. What it was is I didn't pay attention to anything but my basic needs. I didn't make my bed. I didn't take a walk. I grabbed the coffee and started writing. And then this might be too much information, but I went to bed that night wearing the same clothes I woke up in. That's how I just allowed myself to enjoy the process without self-judgment. And I got to tell you, it pays off all the time. And with your music, I know before you were able to enjoy that part that I just explained, I know that it took hours, maybe days or weeks to understand how to produce it, where to put it, the TikTok of it, the no pun intended, but uh, but to know where to, because I talked to you about this podcast, which I think is going to take off because you're so good at what you do, and you know so much of where the platforms are, what links to click and all that stuff. That takes a lot of time, but
It does. Research too, a lot of
yeah,
research.
yeah, a lot of research. So if anybody is listening that really wants to even produce a painting, a poem, I don't care what it is, just don't make your bed when you get up. forget
No, you're
forget
right. I
making your
don't
bed.
even some days when you speak that, it's true. There are days, when I was creating that you forget everything else. You don't even you may not brush your teeth until 6 o'clock at night because you get
Yeah,
into a flow and you just can't break that flow. And you get a lot done on those days too. And then there's
right.
days where you kind of you just admire what you just did. So you stay inspired.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you create the 3,000 best words you've ever written in your life. But see what happens to our demographic of people who are listening to this podcast, who are in the same interest line that we are in. What we do is we get hard on ourselves. Oh my gosh, I'm still in my pajamas, or I still haven't brushed my teeth, or what. I hope nobody finds this out, because it's bad. Like you even mentioned, say it's the good and the bad of it. I think it's the good and the better of it. But if you can just bypass all the self criticism and just keep it up, and this could happen, it could happen for a couple of days where things just move. And if you can arrange your life, and I know there's a lot of people here who have like children or real regular jobs and stuff like that, man, you could schedule it too, and just time off work, get away from the kids, because you tell your husband or your wife, hey, I'm checking into the Hilton for 2 days. Right, and do it there. But it can't be more satisfying. It hasn't been more satisfying for me, so I wish it for everybody who has a desire.
And you know what's wild? Being a little solitary during those creative times, for someone who's super creative, you're better off being off to yourself a lot during those times because I feel like we're manic. At those
Yes.
times, it's kind of like a hypomania that's and a hyper creativity. So you also tend to be just elevated, like you're on drugs, and other people don't, they don't like, what's wrong with you? And you're just kind of floating around the room. I do a lot of silly stuff. Like
Oh
that's how I
yeah.
stay light for the lines. Like even my banishing rituals, most people would be like, he's friggin' crazy. But they're really simple and really humorous because I feel like humor lightens the atmosphere
Yep.
before
Yep.
what we do. I try to, you know, uh, lighten the atmosphere with my wife. We tell lots of jokes and because I don't want to be in a bad mood when someone comes to me in a bad mood. I want to
Yeah,
be in a
right.
good mood. you know.
I have actually mastered that. Because a lot of us are we have empathy, and we kind of some of us take on things, but I learned a long time ago through a very embarrassing moment when I was hairdressing, that I learned that to I learned that to the desire to make someone feel better and lift their fear is actually disrespectful. And I learned it the hard way through my hairdressing, because I had all these new age people coming in. You create your own clientele. And there was a man that came in, and he had a hard time walking. He was a young man. He was born with a problem with his spine. And I asked him how he's doing. Fred, how you doing? And he said, I've decided, I'm trying to decide whether to have this surgery, because it's either going to stop the progression of my problem, or it's going to exacerbate it or make it worse. And I said, oh, what a dilemma. I'm so sorry you're faced with this. And then what I said, because I really felt it as an empath, I said, I mean no disrespect, or I don't want to dismiss anything, but I really have a good feeling about the surgery you signed up for, because he had already made the appointment. And he said, he was a therapist, man, all the way. He says, how dare you?
Oh,
And I said, what? I stopped what I was doing. What? How dare you try and take my fear away from me? That is my fear. And you have no business trying to take that away from me. And that was a weird
that's weird.
That was weird. But then I thought about it. There's a reason why that, and terribly embarrassed, because everybody in the shop heard it. But I took it. I said, that is so weird. It's got to be a real message from this is how life whispers to a person before the tower comes in, or before the devil comes in, right? This is what it looks like when life whispers to you to make a change before it's too late, and to stay on your path the right way. And there was other things right after that happened that mirrored the same message. And now I don't have a bit of problems. I feel bad for people with terrible situations, but I don't try and take all the fear away. And I actually say that to them. I don't want to be disrespectful and take your fear away because you need it for some reason. I'll meet you there, and let's talk more about it so we can find a path out towards peace. But it's those little things in life that, if you do want to be a good counselor, that stuff happens. You get really embarrassed because you overstep or
Well, you
something.
learn to sit with them. I learned the
Mhm.
greatest skill doing this when I first came to it was not to, usually when someone's having a problem, everyone's offering all of these solutions. But
Yeah,
sometimes they want you to come and sit right there in the midst of that pain and
exactly.
experience it with them. And that was the hardest thing, because we're always trying to fix things. We're always seeing the solutions. But that wasn't the most valuable skill. It was being
Hmm.
able to go into that dark space with them and sit in that hell
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
dwell with them there for a little while, so they're understood, because that's one of the biggest things. Feel They feel crazy because of whatever is making them, or that they can't let go of, and
Hmm.
people, they can't talk to anyone else, and you have to
Right.
go into this crazy space and not really be judgmental, which takes some, that takes some time too, because people get into some really dark spaces in their lives, and
Hmm.
that took a little time for me. I don't want to
Hmm.
judge this situation, or
Hmm.
there's a better way to do this. You wait for the openings, because they actually allow their higher nature to shine through sometimes, and they'll keep making excuses like, oh, I know that sounds bad, but for me it doesn't. I've lived a pretty wild life, man. You can't
Right.
really
Right.
freak me out. It's that crazy.
Hmm.
And I've done some dark stuff too, and I've been in those dark places, but the beautiful thing is you can go to another space. And I
Right.
feel like that place for me has been valuable, because I grew up street in a very violent situation, in a violent home. So
Hmm.
I did a lot of drugs and smoking and mushrooms and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I lived. And so I can tell people I've been there spent the night in jail,
Mhm.
I've spent the night
Mhm.
in jail, drunk in public, I've been in those places. And, that helps me in the work because a lot of people are in spaces where they're very ashamed of where they're at
Mhm.
too. And just being able to be there and make a little joke, lighten them up,
Right.
bring them out, and not judge them. That's the most
Right.
important thing. Not also prescribe the solution right away because sometimes that's not what they're looking for either. They're just wanting someone to listen.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed is that they're saying, "Oh, I'm so bad because of ABC." And I said, "No, no, no, that's not negative. What it is just not in alignment with who you are, but it's not bad." And that's one of my theories. I say, some people see good and do good, and some people see bad and do good, and some people get in there and decide what is good and bad. It's they experience life. That's why we have the choice we have. That's why we signed up here. I'm not advocating people take large risks, but if they're not comfortable with that risk. But when I just say, look, this is, if you're here, you're supposed to be here. And there's a million people in the world that are in the same spot. You're not alone, sister, or you're not alone, brother. And then we start from there. But you're right. You got to meet them where they are, and make them comfortable and get them off the, "Oh, I've been so bad. I'm such a horrible person." No, you aren't, sister. You are not.
And and sometimes you have to work through their own belief system too, like
Hmm.
everyone has different faith walks and understandings. If it's a person who tends to be more philosophically inclined, which is me, even though I'm spiritual, I'm super philosophical and practical.
Hmm.
I'll
Good.
say, well, then what is the meaning of this? They'll say, and I'll say, to be honest with you, my belief is that we as humans are the ones who assign meaning to events in our life, that they don't always have an overall, because this is our journey. This is our,
Hmm.
we're here we're in our choose our own ending type of story here. We're not really in a book that's pre-written for us. So you are the
Hmm.
one who's going to have to assign meaning with this later. So something bad can also totally change and transform your life. I've had things I've done that really weren't that compassionate. When later I reflected on it, it made me more compassionate because I realized I was lacking it so bad in the moment,
Hmm.
and so you have to
Right.
learn to convert what's considered bad and see it from the positive, negative perspective so you grow. We
Exactly.
all do bad stuff. Some people to
Yeah.
greater degrees, we've all got all kinds of skeletons in our closet.
Yeah, we've made choices that everyone has that. They've always been with that person. They thought, "What in the world was I thinking to stick around there?" But that's just shines a light on. And a lot of times I say, when you come to that question, sometimes this is my theory. At any one time, we are either someone's teacher or student. But the problem starts when we assume which one we are. I am your teacher. I am your advisor. I know best. No, a lot of times I learn from my clients, and
Oh yeah.
so uh, so um, so that's where it is. And so when someone is in remembering a relationship they stuck too long in, a lot of times they were that person's teacher in it. It's not like, and so they did the other person a service by being strong.
Or
But
even leaving them. I mean, I've
exactly.
been in love at least 5 times. I always tell my clients I've been friends, but I married one person. But the other four were magical. And yes, it hurt when they were gone, but I wouldn't trade those experiences, hindsight,
Mhm.
for anything. And that's how
Right.
you'll look at these experiences that you feel you can never let go of. Oh, believe me, I'm of the belief that your opportunities for love in a lifetime, for your soul's growth, are limitless as long as you're open to it.
Mhm.
There's going to be someone that steps in and becomes that. There's person designed for any of us. We go through so many phases in life. There's always going to be something else for your journey that will nurture you, but you have to open your mind to it. You have to let go of that thing before that's no longer there.
Right. You're so good at what I mean, I just love the way you think, because we we will have, let's say there's a woman that's married and happily married with kids and all that stuff, but she meets someone that rocks her world emotionally, that fulfills something she feels she doesn't have in her marriage or something. Um, that is, it's almost like that is your village to help you be a well-rounded person, right? And I'm not advocating, infidelity and all that stuff, but let's just back up from those labels a bit and open up to what you were talking about. And so I know that you don't love these 5 people at the same time, but because you were able to say, I am a better guy because of this, you're not looking back saying, oh, I should have done this, should have said that, regret. I just love your philosophies. You are a deep thinker, man.
I try. You know what? I also think too, everything is synchronous. Like for me, I'm very mathematically inclined. And I'm like a high functioning Asperger's, so I don't think like other people do.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Elon Musk syndrome. So for one of the reasons I even believe that card reading can be valid no matter which way you see the cards is everything is always synchronous. If you think a thought, you hear it spoken on the radio there. You go, you're thinking of a number, you see it on all these license plates. Every bit of reality is synchronous at all times. It's
Mm-hmm.
just stacked in a mathematical synchronous way.
I
So
believe.
already when that person comes to you, you're already in part of that equation. You're there for a reason, or at least to assign a reason to it.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you read cards, if you notice, sometimes you'll think a thought, a certain card will pop. You'll be like, I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Everything in reality is always doing that. And
Yeah.
it's important to realize not to get crazy and be like, I see a sign here, I see a sign there. No, that's when you're getting a little bit schizo. It's better to realize the synchronous nature of reality and then begin to take that information to develop certain things. So for me,
Right.
that is different. Now I want
And
to get into the clarity tarot because we're getting that, we're
oh,
already in 30 minutes and I want you to, because I love it. I love the images. I think the images are really beautiful. Kate Matthews' art is
right.
I like it a lot. And I've been using it now for probably a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used it live. I've tested it, and it was the only deck that I would use in a live reading, as far as in my hand.
Oh,
And
cool.
it's very simple, easy to understand. It provided me, how everyone thinks there's a prescribed meaning to a card, but
Uh-huh.
for each type of reader, there's a different way they'll come to see it or understand it, and none of us are completely right or wrong.
Right.
It provided me with all these other perspectives, like from the relationship perspective, that I had. Some of them I had already formulated those ideas with cards, like the Hanged Man, for example. It talks
Mm-hmm.
about putting away your ego, and and I've seen that like that, but most of the time I would apply that as, you need to let go of this situation, man. It,
Ah.
I didn't apply it always the way that you did. So for me, diving into the book, which is really thick, by the way, which is good. I love the way you presented everything as if you were teaching a person not just to read this, but to actually read this and
Yeah.
apply this to other people and even apply it professionally. Like at the end of the book, it shows some examples of some of the stuff you do and
Mm-hmm.
how you've applied these things. So this deck is perfect for someone who's thinking about hotline work because it's the
Yeah.
two main subjects that we encounter the most: money and finances and love.
Well, I created it for my fellow hotline people, and because we need to make, this is our job. The real life part of it is that we have bills to pay and we need to sign on and create wealth or sustain ourselves. But sometimes it's harder to get into that higher octave for the answers, or that room of understanding and knowing. And we use tools, pendulums, runes, whatever we have in the tarot. But I can guarantee anyone who picks up that deck and they've been tired, they're getting a call from a private client and they're really not in the mood, but this client is in crisis. You pull this deck and it's going to have something in there. One card is going to, and it is going to, one combination is going to come and bam, you are able to serve that person well and through the card, and not so much through the card and up to the octave and back down again, because there's a combination that will present itself that is going to make the shift for the other person quickly. And because I've tried, when I was reading, I would have these combinations and I would test it out. Like, for instance, the reverse 9 of cups, which is usually upright, is it's like the wish card. You're celebrating. You're in a bar, maybe, because it's sometimes called. If that is reversed with any, and if it's ill dignified, let's say having the devil around or the chariot reversed or something like that, I can tell that that person I'm reading for has been coping with this situation through outside substances, maybe drinking, overeating, spending, drugs, alcohol, any of that stuff. So I thought that I got a hit one time that combination meant that on one reading. So every reading after that, if I got that combination, I would say to the client, I have this combination. I'd like to run this past you. I'm kind of researching it and blah, blah, blah. This means that does your partner or your person of interest have a problem with drugs or alcohol? Oh boy, home run each and every time. If I do want to say this, if you decide to read it that way, which it's worked out for me, and you have someone who says, oh, my boyfriend has trouble with alcohol, but he's sober. That is not you to say, oh, he's dropped off the wagon. He's not, his recovering is over with. That's not what that combination means. It means that he's struggling with his choices. That's all it means. It doesn't mean he's not still sober. You see what I'm saying? So there's a nuance to that. But that's how I learned the combinations that are in the Clarity Tarot deck and the combinations that are in the book that just pay off time and time again when I read strangers out of the blue and I just run it past them. And I'm not saying that mine is the only one, because you have your way of reading. You'll notice a certain card coming up or a combination coming up. You have a hit of a theory, an intuitive hit on that. And you just say, okay, make a mental note. When that comes up again, I'm going to ask the next 2, 3, 4 people if it's true. And if it's true for 3 or 4 people, that's your language with spirit, your unique language for spirit. That's how spirit is going to say, hey, look at this point. Sometimes when I have that combination, I don't mention it at all. It's just information for me to know about what my client is going through. So it gets into that. But I made the deck for professionals, but it's good for anybody who wants to start out and get a jump start to be a professional. From novice
you got
to
the yes
pro.
and no's at the top too. You got yes and no answers at the top corner. Then you have.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm sorry, I'm going to cough here. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I say in the book, I explain it in the book, but some people aren't reading the book. You put 5 cards down. If you have more Y's, and the answer is yes. If you have more N's, it's the answer. But the cards are going to tell you why it's yes and why it's no. If a person comes up and says, will I ever be married? You never read on that question. You reframe it saying, am I going to meet the person of interest in the next 6 months? A viable partner in the next 6 months. That's how you frame that question. And then let's say the answer is no, and it's going to break their heart. You don't want to deliver that, right? But what it is what it is spirit is saying, no, you're not going to meet the person of your dreams in the next 6 months because, and it'll show like the 3 of Cups reversed or the 3 of Cups upright. You're not socializing enough.
Yep.
You're not going out of the house enough. And that's when I counsel saying, even though you don't want to have a drink after work with the group, go anyway for 10 minutes. There's a reason. It just changes, because we change our life at the level of action, not wishes. And the best way life can synchronize up blessings for you is if you are moving inside the cabin, or outside the cabin.
You gotta live. I mean, that's like trying to formulate an intention. Like I have this secret for reality that it does not respond to aspiration. It responds to expectation. When they did the big physics experiment where they shot the ball of light through the photon tube or however they did it, On the end that the physicists saw it, they saw it one way. Some saw it as a particle, some saw it as a wave, and they were forced to say that basically you're in what you expected is what you saw. So at least on a subatomic level, what you're expecting is going to happen. So if you're expecting, if you have 5 different places you can make income in a day, but you only open up 3 and you say, I want to have abundance today, you're not expecting. You better open all 5.
Yeah.
Your mind, reality is going to respond to your expectation, not your aspiration. You expect to succeed. You expect the good things to come in. And that can be hard when you get into a negative spiral, but you got to come out of it.
Yeah.
And you have to be in life. You have to, because love is always an accident. It's very rarely just something that you can thread together and go tailor it up, and meet someone. It has to be, it's always so spontaneous and really kind of mysterious how you meet someone, how you bond with that person at first. And you just can't really plan it. It's not possible. You have to be in life.
Yeah. And the person that you become, let's see, how do I say it? The person you present to your lifetime partner might not be the person you're familiar with at the moment. And the only way you're going to be that person that's going to attract your happily ever after is for you to be out in the world experiencing new things with new groups or new topics or new fascinations. And by the way, people say, what's the meaning of life? I always like to say this. What's the meaning of life? Everyone's born for only one purpose only, and that is to follow their fascination. That's it. And you follow that thread, and you follow it, and you create your own tapestry, and then it will open up new avenues, and that will mean a new tribe, and that will mean a new expression of self and with others. So I always like to pull that into a conversation to remind people that
there ain't always a grander purpose except just to enjoy the journey instead of thinking about where we're going. Just enjoy the ride and actually try to, for me, it's try to grow in love. Try to because it seems like the only thing that ever matters to a person at the end of their life is that, they think about things they wanted to do, but really if they didn't have love enough. Like I always say things like, I wish I would have spent more time, but don't say it later. Do it now. Live it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Even when you're stressed, just live it now, because that's all you're going to think of later is I didn't do that. And you should just be just jumping on it. Don't get into plans, although you need them. Get into the journey and just get on the train and start looking out the window, because that's pretty much it. When you get there to the other side, it's over. At least this one.
And when I was creating the Clarity Tarot and working with Kate about that, I never allowed myself to figure out what it was going to be like after it's done while I was doing it. If you spend any amount of too much time, rather, you can spend a little time, but if you spend too much time saying, oh, the painting I'm doing is going to go in this gallery and it's going to sell for $800 or whatever it is. For me personally, that takes the energy the spark I need in the moment to create away. And so when you have a muse, some sort of painting, or want to create a deck or something like that, don't go online to learn how KDP works, like how you publish your book. Write the book, write your heart out in that book, and then afterwards decide where it's going to live, but not while you're doing it. I think you just said that, but I said it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have the both at the bottom too. You have the meanings for money, meanings for love. That really helps out in what we do.
That has been my experience through the hotline. Some of them don't align with the traditional meanings that other people have found. But when we do readings, one right after the other, it's been my experience that the keywords I have below the cards have rung true more often than not. So that's kind of what makes it a bit different.
Well, you do get different meanings. I noticed too, like the way you saw one of the pages, I believe it was a page of swords. You said an immature, loving style.
Yep.
when I look at the pages, a lot of the time, it doesn't always signify children to me. It can be a person who's more emotionally immature in a relationship, who's not really rising to the occasion the way they should.
Right.
It was interesting that you found that meaning,
Mhm.
because I use them in that way a lot for a
Oh, good.
person
That's good feedback.
immaturity, because it just
Yeah.
makes sense. Like if it doesn't apply to some people, they get so literal with the tarot meanings that they're not flowing, and
Right.
you'll botch a whole reading because you're trying to have this pat set of meanings when it's really
Mhm.
just the symbols that are supposed to trigger your own intuitions.
Right.
So it's
Right. Right.
important to read like that. When you start flowing in a hotline scenario, you get it fast. You're like, oh, okay, I get
Yeah.
this. And you learn a lot of, and that's why I liked it. I got to go through there and see some of the insights that you've gotten that are similar to mine and ones that are different. And I feel like every time I go to someone's deck that where they do assign meanings, I'm not judgmental about the meaning of cards, because
Uh,
another advisor that we know from South is a real visual reader,
mhm.
and she all perhaps, and she was reading once and told me about how, does this
Mhm.
person drink a lot? I had never applied it that way, even though
Mhm.
it's written all over the card in the imagery. And so she also found that same thing that you did, this person, and applied that visual aspect. And for me, at first, it was everything's mathematical. So it took me a while to let the visual side shine through like that.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, that's good feedback. Thank you.
The pages so when I would look through it, for me, I'm never judgmental. I like to
Mhm.
see that we all have these different perspectives, and because they're different, we're all unique. I
Mhm.
don't like tarot queens and all the people out there, the naysayers and haters. It's the same in anything that you try to do.
Right.
That's what you to be proud of what you did, because most people don't follow through and actually accomplish anything they set out to
Uh-huh.
do. And that the first try is always going to be, you're always going to look back on it and criticize it a little bit within yourself, because you could have done,
Right.
but you might
Right.
could have done better at the time because you're in that space you're in. You're always going to be able to outdo it, but getting it done is, and again, we talked about the card stock. I like the card stock. I know that some said it was a little thin. I
Mhm.
like thin cards. I don't rough shuffle my cards. They're all very sacred. I don't treat them that way. They last a
Right.
long time. I haven't had any issues giving kind of purfling or any of the stuff that, for
Yeah.
me,
Oh, good.
you know,
Yeah, a lot of it when you collaborate on a project. I mean, when you self-publish, that's one thing, but when you collaborate, you're at the whim. Like there are cards that there was one card that Kate drew that I wanted it. I asked her to change it in a certain way because I wanted this one image so bad, and she said no. And then with the cardstock issue, it's a little thinner. I mean, they shuffle so well. And when you're on the hotlines, you're shuffling all the time. Please, your hands get tired, literally. But like the publisher had China was going to publish it, I mean print it in China, but then COVID shut that down again, and so he switched to India, and somewhere in the way the cardstock got thin, and it devastated me. The first three Amazon reply, I shouldn't have looked, but the reviews was 1 star because of the cardstock, and I cried my eyes out. Before I became like a public person on social media, I actually thought that when people asked me for a review, let's say review this product or something, I actually believed people wanted to know how I felt and that I was doing something good if I trashed, oh, I had a terrible time at this restaurant, a terrible meal and stuff. And I'm not a cook. I never owned a restaurant, but I'm saying, "Oh, I didn't like my taco," right? And I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I ever did a poor review for anybody." Because you're right, I'm not in that arena. I have nothing to say about it. If it's something dangerous, I will write that, but a poor review for that. But after I'm on the other end of a poor review, oh my God, Matt, I it devastates me. I
I
have a
feel
hard.
like one of them was very unfair. One of the reviews I found was unfair, and that person, when I went and actually followed, and I'm not going to, call people
Mhm,
out, but
mhm,
I wanted just because I wanted to see what other things they reviewed, and they had a little bit of a history of just being kind of rude. And I
mhm.
don't feel like, as all the time I've used the cards, I haven't seen any damage at all. And I've spent like 2 weeks 12 hours a day with these
Right.
cards, which most people will never use a deck that much in a lifetime, and they look just like the day I got them.
Oh,
So for
awesome.
me,
Thank you.
that's my experience. But I'm not, I take care of my stuff. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
I
feel like that person, she's already, a little bit of a negativist when I went through some of the
right.
other reviews. But that hurts. It does hurt.
It does hurt. One day I was thinking, okay, to cope with a poor review, I'm going to promise myself, because I don't drink, but I have alcohol in my house in case someone comes over and wants a drink. I don't know why I have it, but I thought I am going to have a beer when I get a poor review so I can calm myself down, because I really get upset. And one day I got it doesn't happen often, but I got this poor review from my work on the hotline, and I went to the refrigerator. I opened a beer and I knocked a sip back, and I thought, oh my God, it's 11:30 in the morning. I've got to stop this. I
Uh,
was, I thought, okay, I've gone too far. I'm just going to have to cope a different way.
Yeah, it wouldn't
But
help me any. I've got
it,
Indian blood in me, so when we drink in our family, we're not always the best we can
no,
be. Sometimes you can shake me up and get funny guy, and other times, I can be kind of volatile. I have to
right.
be in certain company. So I've learned over time, alcohol isn't really the friend
Yeah.
of,
Well,
those of us.
that's the thing, is that I don't drink. So one sip of something changes my chemistry enough to say, okay, calm down. So, but I don't drink that much, but I thought, well, I'm going to have to cope a different way. But I
Well, it's a
don't
good
do
thing you
poor.
didn't get a
Yeah,
lot of bad reviews. You'd be a
I
drunk.
I know what you mean, man. I'd be on the floor a lot, but that now I do not post poor reviews, even unless it's an emergency, like I got sick at a restaurant or something. I'd certainly report that. But uh, if it's just me being a bad mood, and that's ridiculous. And I'm not even in that arena, right? But I appreciate you bringing up the card stock. I wasn't sure how to do that on this, so people are prepared. But I find it easy. I
I
shuffle
like
like
it.
you all day, and all day long. And
I
I'm a
like it
rough
because
shuffler.
it fits in my hand better. I have some other decks that they're really, really tough card stock, but it's like holding this
Yeah,
and all day long. And I don't like the fact that they don't stay in my hands as well. Yours just slides the way I shuffle, real nice, the way I
uh,
like them. Like them
awesome.
thin, and I'm real easy on my cards. So I don't even think it's an issue. That just be me. Whether they run them at a different density in the future, but I still feel like it's not going to detract from the beauty of the art. Kate Matthews, the images have all this because she's
Yep.
also native.
Hmm.
She slipped in all these hawks and all these things that are like meaningful to me because my power animal is a hawk. So I saw them all over the place on the deck. So for me, the images really, really speak out, and they're really
Awesome.
bright and vivid images. And for me, out of all the decks I've used, it's one of my favorite decks that I've put on the table and read in a day-to-day, routine.
Yeah, her concept was interesting. She came to one of my classes. I knew it. She owned an art gallery, and she came to one of my classes for tarot. And I said, Kate, I didn't know you were, after the class, I said, I didn't know you were into tarot. And she goes, well, I'm kind of not. I came actually to ask you if you wanted to collaborate and do a deck. But she doesn't read the tarot, but she researched every artistically the meaning of a lot of decks, and researched the meaning of all the symbols in that deck, at various decks, and then she would incorporate that in her card. And
She did
got
a
to
great
hand it
job.
to her. She did a great job.
I have never seen a nine of swords that really portrays the intensity of the emotions involved with that than I
Hmm.
have. I mean, when you see that image, and when people get that deck, because you should go out and buy the Clarity Tarot. When they see that image, it really conveys that more than say, look, I like the original art that was on the Rider Waite, but it needs reinterpretation. It wasn't really that striking. So if you're
Hmm.
really artistically inclined, this is way more going to speak to you what the images mean.
Hmm.
And I feel like she did a great job not having a background in the tarot. I feel like the way she portrayed the images turned out perfect.
Right. I liked it. There was one image I was really wanting her to do, and it was the chariot. Now, I love the chariot. I love the chariot she did. But what my suggestion was is that guy in the wheelchair. I wanted to have a person in a wheelchair on a path in a forest with two dogs pulling her on the path in the forest in nature. uh that one is a white husky maybe, and the other a Rottweiler, the white and black. You know how you do horses, those were white and black. Anyway, that was my theory. I begged her to do it that way. She goes, no, we already have one wheelchair. I said, okay.
I get that. Though. I see your point.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
you're dealing with any artist too, we all have our little listen. I'm
Mm-hmm.
really meticulous too. I'm really, really OCD about my art. So I understand that. I really do.
Yeah, I get it too. I get it
Yes.
too.
So tell me about your teaching course. You have a, because I don't want to go too much over an hour because
All
we'll
right,
lose
right.
people as far as that.
Yeah,
So tell
yeah.
me about the
Yeah.
teaching course that you
So
offer.
what I did after I wrote the book, and it was at the publisher and getting produced, and it takes about a year for it to come out. I created a 31 video course. Um, it's taking every card and explaining what it means in general, but it also, I pull into it what I've learned on the hotlines, right? And reading so many things, and it's very comprehensive because there's some practice readings that you go through so you can really get up to speed. So I created this uh, video training. And then after that, I give you a buzz. Because I can see when someone purchases the course. And then after that, I give you a couple of days and I contact you and say, where do you want to go with this? Right? Because that's the one thing I wanted to give, is not just put this deck out, but I want to support. That's what makes it the biggest difference, is that I'm supporting the person who purchases the deck. Say, oh, I'm thinking about just it'd be fun to play with friends. Fine. Let me point you in that direction, how you can do it that way. Oh, I really kind of want to be a professional, maybe go on TV, do something like that, be a show person. Fine. I'll get you into down the events and platform work. Oh, I'd really like to do mediumship or animal communication. Then there's a way to read tarot that way. So I'll just construct a next step for you to go. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's I think it's real comprehensive, but it's a really good start to get you the foundation. And then I stalk you for one call. I give you one email. I don't stalk you, but and say, okay, whatever you want to do next, I'm here. And that's my thing. So thanks for bringing that up. I almost forgot.
And
Uh,
it's valuable. It comes from someone who's not only been experienced, but nobody applies this type of stuff more than a hotline worker.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've probably done 14, 15,000 readings in the past,
Mm-hmm.
4 years. And that's a
Yep.
lot of reading. So you get more experience doing this than the average person. And you have all these years of experience teaching it,
Mm-hmm.
and applying the knowledge. So, in one perusal of the book, because it was a fat book that came with it. Most of
Yeah.
the booklets that come with tarot decks are not as comprehensive as that. They're usually very short.
Great. Thank you.
This one's
Yeah.
more detail oriented, and saying, because I'm always, going through all these different things. But I read
Sure.
through it pretty good. Got to
Yeah.
look at it, and
Appreciate
it's
it.
real comprehensive. Applies all these perspectives that someone starting out. I mean, this is knowledge you can't get anywhere else. It comes
Right.
from application.
And that's the thing, is that my life changed for the better once I went pro, financially and everything else, and accurately. And so it's that there is a leap there. There is a gap from the learning first and then going for, and that's what I wanted to serve the people who are thinking, this might be good, and let's go the next step, because we need people available in the world who do good work to help people find relief from their burdens, even if it's just the 5 minutes you're talking to them. And I'd like to have more people doing that.
And it's kind of a nice free way to make a living too. You take a lot of, even though you work more, I work more now than I ever have. As far as
Yeah.
every minute of the day, I'm either working on a media project, a digital thing I'm doing on a social media platform, I read on like 5 to 7 different hotlines that interlink with my Click for advisors. So it's like I'm always on all of those things and doing all these other things. So it's like,
Hmm.
uh, for me, it just gave me a lot of freedom. I don't mind doing the extra work because I'm always in the comfort of home,
Yep.
and and to me, that's been really invaluable. And I have some personal life situation stuff that I'm available for that stuff now,
Right.
even though
Right.
I work. So I feel like a lot of people that want to do it. I saw this one on Reddit the other day. I'll go over this real quick. This person was concerned about their daughter who started reading tarot at 14, and they were making money at school, like off their friends. And one person spent their whole little savings, and they came to their daughter and said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Do you believe in this?" And I feel like she does, but she told them, she didn't want to get, the faith lecture or whatever. And she was like,
Yeah.
"No, I just, I like learned it." And they were concerned about it. And my answer to that was, they'll get more ethics. They won't drain the pocket of their friend who's having
Yeah.
anxiety. They're young, but at the same time, you have a child who's, instead of laying around playing video games and not doing anything, they're out actually being an entrepreneur, actually doing
Yeah.
something useful. They'll grow into it and become more
Mhm.
compassionate with it. There's 14.
Yeah.
Not
Exactly.
necessarily a bad thing.
That's for sure. Good on her. Good on
So
her.
what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna definitely, the links are at the website. I'm gonna put those links in the show notes to all of the stuff that you're doing.
Oh,
And
thank you.
we'll have you on again, because I know you're gonna have a project down the way. This isn't the end of the road
Right.
with Debra Zachau. So you'll be coming on again, I'm sure. And I've enjoyed having you on. I wish I could talk forever. That's the thing. These episodes could be long as Joe Rogan, but I've never finished a Joe Rogan episode, so I know it's not a good idea to go that long.
I hear you. Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed. I've always admired your work, and I'm so glad we connected on this level. I appreciate everything. Thank you so much.
I feel the same way. I remember when you sent me my numerology report, and I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? I don't get readings, by the way. Even though I do this, I never get readings. I said, but you know what? I told Gina, I said, if I was ever going to get one, I think I would pick her.
Oh,
So, and that's a compliment coming from me, because I never get readings, and I don't
well,
give readings to any of my friends. Like, they hate me for it.
I always wanted a reading from you. I purchased one, and I was so impressed with what you said. But then you went in messages and gave me extra, and I was so honored and felt heard. And you are very, very good, my friend. I'm so glad to know you.
I feel the same way. I remember it was about writer's block, which I've had
Yeah,
that a time or two.
yeah,
Having that creation block when you're trying to, you've done it,
yeah.
and you've
With
made
your help.
something. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you. I will talk to you again soon. I'm going to try to stitch all this together, and then we'll put it out to the world, and everybody can know more who Debra Zachau is and the
Uh,
beautiful art of Kate Matthews.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward
All
to
right.
everything. Thank you so much for your
All
time,
right.
efforts. Talk to you
Thank you
soon.
for coming on.
Ah, I
All right.
love it. I loved it. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
I told you she was amazing. Wasn't she great? Now, I want to tell you, with this Friday being Black Friday, you're going to be with your family this holiday season, to get out and get the Clarity Tarot. You can find it on Amazon.com. You can also find it at DebraZachau.com. All of the links are in the show notes here. And you can also find links on the website, thirdeyevibes.one. I have some of her social links. I have links to her course. Her courses there. I have everything you need to actually find her and to actually experience the Clarity Tarot. And you should get one. I've put this thing through the ultimate test in the belly of the beast for the last few weeks, and I read long hours all day long on several hotlines and in personal work. It stood the test, and it offers a really unique perspective, especially if you want to do this as something that's not just a hobby, but as a profession. And I feel like it has a lot to offer in that way. And the art of Kate Matthews is striking, so you have to have it. Now, I have another episode planned over the next couple of weeks. You're going to love it, but I'm not going to tell you exactly what we have planned, because I want to make sure I cinch all of the ends up. But until then, look for us on the website, thirdeyevibes.one. Follow us on social media. We're on TikTok. We're on Third Eye Vibes Psychic on TikTok. We're also on Instagram. thirdeyevibes.one is my Instagram. I ended up getting my Instagram handle with the actual web address. So until then, stay tuned.